We love being able to go to the different high school, colleges, middle schools to live broadcast sporting events around the area. Georgia Alabama Sports Live appreciates all the fan support, but without a presenting sponsor like Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC and Opelika, none of this would be possible. So we want to say thank you so much. Go to glennsmith.com. That is right, glennsmith.com. See all the inventory and see why people always say, get ready to smile. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC for being our presenting sponsor. What is up, everyone? Good evening, Tri-City area. It's Thrift Barringer. It's Richard Holdridge. It's Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. We have had a fantastic week of baseball. We've had a great week and last couple of weeks of just sports in general, and we got a great show in store for you today. Richard, how are you doing, man?
Oh, Thrift, I am doing great. I'm happy to be on doing a Georgia Alabama Sports Live show with you after the busy week that we had of calling high school baseball. It's really exciting just to have a break and to get to talk sports with you today.
So, great lineup in store for you. We're going to talk about updating the high school baseball scene. Richard knows it better than anyone. We drop our baseball ratings. Pretty much similar to last week. Maybe a few changes at the bottom, but the top's pretty much the same. We'll drop that. We'll talk March Madness. You know, I'm off my soapbox. Auburn's out, but there's still NCAA Sweet 16, men's and women's coming up this weekend, starting tonight for the men. So we'll talk that, give our what we think will happen in March Madness, even though nobody knows anything in terms, especially when predicting March Madness. And then we'll end the show with our NBA predictions, end of season. And I got something fun for us. The way we're going to go about, saying, do we agree or disagree on who's going to win it all this year, how many teams can win it all. I have something called the double fist pump. I don't know if any of y'all ever seen like the old man, when they get one of these going, they get that double fist pump. It's a big deal. They just accomplished something. Double fist pump for the teams that we think can win it all? Or is it the one fist pump? Or are we going the full Tiger Woods uppercut, which means championship, no doubt? So we're gonna go off our predictions with that. So we got double fist pump, and then we got the Tiger Woods literally try to uppercut you and knock you out when he was in his prime of golf. So that is what's in store. And again, make sure to like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. And without further ado, we're going to get into the high school baseball scene. Richard, we'll start with Monday. And then we'll talk about the scene as a whole as we get into our ratings. But you did something that I think Jack said it may have been history, just the game in general. But the broadcasting aspect of it, it's one of the longest broadcasts we've done for a single game. Not just an entire stream, because remember, we streamed 14 hours straight in the Muskogee County Christmas tournament. But for one game, 4 hours and 50 minutes is how long you were broadcasting the Kendrick Spencer. I don't know if I want to say extravaganza, if I want to say marathon. I mean, tell us how that experience was as Kendrick comes back down 15-1 to win 27-26.
It was a great experiment. It's a great experiment. Great experience. So I actually really appreciate.
What type of experiments are you doing?
Look, I was just excited just to be there. I mean, Kendrick, Spencer, these are two rivals. I wanted to make sure to give these schools coverage. And a big shout out to athletic director of Kendrick, Andre Dye, for allowing me to broadcast the game. And he actually joined me in the booth a couple of times, really helped, promote Kendrick athletics. And, Coach Pickett for Spencer, and we also got Coach Peak for Kendrick. I mean, they were very gracious, and all the Kendrick and Spencer family and alumni really appreciated me broadcasting a game,
Yes,
which
they did.
Kendrick won 27-26. It was the most wildest finish I've ever witnessed in a broadcast. I thought it was going to get called after maybe 3 or 4 because Spencer was up 15-1. And usually the GHSA, they have the 12-run rule after 4. They have the 15-run rule after 3. And I thought it was going to be like over and done. But Kendrick clawed their way back.
Yes,
And
they did.
even though they tie it in the 7th, it goes into extra innings. I mean, it's nightfall. It is cold out there, but the fans toughen it out. And how about this? Kendrick gets the win, and they're now 3-8 on the season. They went
How about
1-21 last year. And I think what Coach Peak is doing there, he is building something. And I thought it was very special the day after the Sally Little League opening ceremonies. A lot of these players at Spencer and Kendrick played for Sally Little League. It gives them an opportunity to be in the spotlight. I was talking to Tristan Holzendahl. By the way, I think he's going to get all region. He's batting .650 with 2 home runs, 15 RBIs for Kendrick.
Nice.
I talked to him after the game. I know that he was appreciative that I was there calling the game. And this is a player that is one of those players to watch. I mean, he's getting coverage, and he's also having a great season.
Yes, and great job, by the way. I give you a shout out on the Sports Business Radio show today, and I mean 4 hours and 50 minutes, Richard. I don't blame you, as you couldn't even get the words out. It was such a long, I don't want to say draining, but man, 27-26, 53 runs combined in one game.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's unheard of, and you were there to be able to capture that. And if you don't believe us, go back and watch on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Are you making any experiments though? Are you experiment with anything? Are you trying to get into the gambling scene? Because
No.
listen, I'll tell you this. You've been on the roll with some predictions lately. I don't know if you want to try to ride that hot streak and keep that money hot. No, I'm just playing, because your prediction about as bad as mine last week when it comes to March Madness, Richard. I mean,
Exactly.
you said New Mexico State, and they got housed. No pun intended. Jalen House was not enough. Son of Eddie House. But going back to high school baseball, great job, Richard. Tuesday, we were supposed to do Calvary Pacelli, but we couldn't because of the weather. It got postponed to Saturday. So Calvary Pacelli, 10 o'clock. Rick Beach will be on the call. And then making his inaugural debut as a play-by-play announcer, ours truly, Chris Gates will call a game while producing the Calvary LaGrange at 3:30. So we got a doubleheader. Chris is going all out for us. I told him, I was like, you're just crazy as Richard doing this. But he said he's willing to do it. C. Smith's welcoming it. Calvary's an excellent baseball team. You'll find out when we drop our ratings here in just a moment. So that's happening on Saturdays. But yesterday, we finally got our foot in the door. We have been knocking. I mean, banging, kicking, pleading, screaming. I mean, even begging. And finally, someone from Central, and that is Matt Bell, the athletic director, who does a fantastic job, allowed us to come over there and live stream. Thank you to Tim Lorman. Thank you to AJ Keogh, the coach, which we'll talk about in just a moment in his program, for putting a good word in for us as we did the Columbus Central game a few weeks ago. So we did our first home Central game of any sport, and hopefully many more to come, as a lot of the fans were appreciative for us being there, and they got a heck of a baseball team. Some outlets have them number 1 in the country. Others have them number 3. Regardless, they're one of the best teams in the nation. And Richard had a lot of fun yesterday as they took on a really good LaGrange team who's been the state final back-to-back years and could be going for the 3rd straight season.
It was a great matchup between 2 great historic high school baseball teams. As many of you know, I'm familiar with LaGrange because I do work up there. My full-time job is up in LaGrange. So I've been part of, seeing LaGrange play baseball. I've had Coach Donnie Branch on my podcast. I've followed LaGrange the past 2 seasons make their incredible run to the state championship, however, fallen to North Oconee in the championship both times. Had a young team 2 years ago, had a phenomenal freshman pitcher named Caden Wood. I mean, facing elimination, pitched a 7-inning scoreless shutout gym. I mean, LaGrange has been battle tested. This was one of those games. LaGrange comes out, and they are just teeing off on the Central pitcher. They're
kind of
the
like
first
what
four
happened
batters.
when Columbus High and Central played.
Yeah, Columbus was up 4-0. LaGrange went up 3-0 in the first, and it could have been a lot worse. But I think the play that changed the game was the shortstop Woody catching a line drive, going to his right, and then with the self-awareness to quickly throw back to the bag at second to double up the runner. And now LaGrange has 2 outs. I think that LaGrange, with no outs, a runner at second, could have easily put up 5 or 6 runs.
If that would have
got
past him, that runner at second probably would have scored.
Probably would have scored.
Nothing. And who knows, with no outs, that it could have kept rolling. Cam Norton, the starting pitcher, settled down. He had a couple scoreless innings. And honestly, they didn't give up another run the rest of the game. And then in the third and fourth, they added on there to make it 4-3, and the rest was history between Cam Norton, Emery Yan, and there's one other pitcher, Logan Clark. They're the 3 guys that they used, and the Clark and Yan did a good job in the second half of the game to be able to put the LaGrangers out of ease. Sometimes they had runners on in scoring position, didn't give up anything. Big-time game for Cameron Briggs. And just timely hitting from Coach Keogh's team. They don't hit a lot of home runs, but they get a lot of quality at bats. Something that, if you don't know with analytics, is basically doing something productive and positive towards a team goal, like a sacrifice bunt, moving a runner over, whatever it may be. Even if you get out, it's still their quality at bat. And most of their guys, Richard, are in the 60% of their bats are quality at bats. That's an elite level team, and that's why they are ranked so high in the country. Their pitching staff's excellent. And being at Darnell Nelson Field, a field that's hosted many state championship winning teams, including team 2 years ago in 2022. Great job. And Coach Keogh thought, but they had 4 errors. That's uncharacteristic for this Central team. They just got off spring break, but he said that's baseball. Sometimes that happens. But he likes that his team is able to, they got a lot of blowouts. To be able to overcome this and win against a really good team is going to shape them up for a very tough area matchup with Opelika, Smith Station, Auburn. All those teams made the playoffs in recent years. So Central's got a lot ahead of it. But right now, they are on a roll. And that just goes now for, it seems like every sport Central plays. It don't matter if it's men's or women's. They're competitive. They're one of the tops in the state. And they're vying for a state championship. And Coach Keogh's team is looking maybe even bigger than that, maybe national championship and nation's #1 team by the end of the season. Richard, you made mention of Donnie Branch. I got a question. When you see Coach Branch, is it Coach Branch? You call him Big Don?
I call him Coach Branch. Coach.
You've ever,
No, not
on
at all.
a first name basis, you never Big Don or anything like that?
No. I've much respect for Coach Branch. I mean, he is a legend at LaGrange. In fact, the baseball stadium up in LaGrange is called the Branch. It's Granger Field. It's nicknamed the Branch.
Yeah, well, like I said, if you ever say Big Don, I know you and him on a whole nother level, Richard. If you say, "What's up, Don?" Hey, Donnie Branch. But no, Coach Branch does a great job with the Grangers. Tomorrow we got Harris County Northgate, and then Saturday, as I said, the double header. But great job by the Kendrick Cherokees. They've been much improved before we put up our ratings. Also, the Carver Tigers, 4-9. Coach Michael Long getting better each and every season. Maybe could be a #4 seed and make the playoffs, Richard.
Possibly. I think, they're going to have a tough outing. They've got some tough games, including against Monroe, Dougherty, Crisp County. I mean, they've already played Columbus. They've played Thomasville. But I think the Carver Tigers, what Coach Michael Long Jr. is doing is developing his players. I mean, they don't have the resources like teams that are known for baseball. But Carver, we know that Carver has had athletes, with football and basketball, and Coach Long is just a great coach when it comes to developing players. And you got to remember that they lost to Calvary 12-2. You saw that game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. They were competitive in that first inning. Ace Thomas going toe-to-toe against Bailey Thorne strikes him out to end the inning. I mean, this is one of the top hitters in the state.
Yeah, and it was cool to be able to see that. So, with some other great teams around our area that are doing a good job. Northside's having a bit of a down season, but they took 2 or 3 from Harris County. They can still make the playoffs this year. I know they only got 4 wins on the season, but Coach Sparks, they can turn it around very easily. But let's go ahead and throw it up. Our high school baseball ratings. Coming in at number 10 for the first time all season is the Harris County Tigers, 5-12. They got a big win over number 7, Columbus, last week, 10-0. They have lost some games since then. They got a big series coming up against Northgate, but Harris County comes in at number 10. Coach Tony Dimitri's team trying to make the playoffs. So got a lot of stuff ahead of it and has the opportunity to maybe even host a playoff game, even with that record. And a lot of that has to attribute to the slow start, but after starting, I think 1-8, 1-9, they're 4-4. So they're starting to get better and playing their best baseball of the season.
Yeah, and they did get a win against Smith Station as well. And you talked about Northgate, which they are playing right now. Northgate's going to be a tough matchup. They play LaGrange. They'll play Opelika. And then they close out the season against Drew and McIntosh. So possibly getting a number 2 seed, hosting a playoff game in the first round of the playoffs is still at stake. But they do have a tough schedule. But what Coach Dimitri's done is that they continue to improve. This Harris County team is just getting better and better each game they play.
Yeah, they are. And coming in at number 9, she's got a big one against Pacelli on Monday. It's the Shaw Raiders. What do you got to know about them, Richard? And Coach Howie Shackford's team, 5-8. And again, they're another team, too, that's going to make the playoffs, depending on seeding right now, because I think Hardaway is going to be left out in that region. But Shaw, they'd rather be one of the top 3. They're 5-8. Tough schedule early on, but you're starting to see they're starting to play their best baseball. They won their last 2.
Well, they also have returning starters from last year's team that went to the second round of the playoffs. Nick Torres and John Rowland. They got the Long brothers, Kingston Long and Kingsley Long. And they just have a mixture of young players and veterans. They swept the series against Hardaway. That last game you saw on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, Hardaway gave them a fight. That was a 4-3 game going into the last inning. And I think that Shaw is still got to play some teams in front like Westover. They still got to play Bainbridge. Bainbridge is one of the top teams in their region. They've already lost to Cairo. I think that Shaw's goal is just to make the playoffs. Look, last year, they hosted a playoff game at home for the first time in over a decade. I mean, that was a big deal. And I know you were mentioning about Shaw Baseball on the Sports Visions radio show.
Yeah, we had Edwin Jackson,
legendary
player, won a state championship back in 2001, the same calendar year that in 2000, same school calendar year, that they won the football championship, and they're trying to get Shaw back to their prominence under Coach Flowers. Jordan, maybe the surprise team of our area. They're 7-7, and they got a big one coming up. We're going to do Kendrick and Jordan, as Kendrick got the big win against Spencer. Jordan could make the playoffs this year for the first time since Tony Dimitri was there several years back.
Well, Thrift, they made the playoffs last year.
Oh, excuse me. They did make the playoffs last year. You're right.
Well, Jordan actually got an upset win last week against Rutland. That was their first loss of the season. I mean, Jordan is playing fantastic. They beat Central on Monday. They split the series with Rutland. Ace Charter, I mean, this team could probably win the state. I mean, they lost both games to Ace Charter. That's the class of the league. But 4-4, and if you look at the standings right now, Ace Charter is in first place, followed by Rutland. Northeast at 4-3. Jordan is 4-4. Southwest is 2-3. So right now, Jordan would make the playoffs. they still got to play Kendrick. I believe they'll play Spencer one more time. They had a rain out, so they're going to reschedule that. They'll play Central this week. They're going to play Southwest. Everything is in front of the Jordan Red Jackets. And Trey Stokes, that's one of their top players. Looking forward to just see him play. And I'm excited about going back to Kendrick and calling that Kendrick Jordan game. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun, and we hope Jordan makes the playoffs this year. Remember, there's 8 teams in their region, so a little bit tougher, but
a little bit.
They have the capability to do that. From the Red Jackets to the Blue Devils, and they're about 2-3 minutes apart from each other. They got a big series tomorrow against Thomasville. Thomasville's undefeated in their region, along with Crisp County. They need to beat Thomasville. They want to be able to be the top team in the region and host a playoff game. Then they got Noonan. They got Woodward Academy, who's an elite team. Tough schedule for Columbus High. Then they end it with Chris, Northside, and then at Monroe. They've had to play Brookstone. They lost to Harris County. They did beat Daugherty twice. They beat Carver already, beat Russell County, lost to Smith Station, beat Shaw. They played LaGrange. We talked about how good they are, Auburn, and, of course, Central. They beat Northgate. Columbus High coming in at 10-10. They got Michael Nodelman. This Columbus High team, I think, is a really good team. They're 4-0 in their region. Colin Cates leads the team in average with about 335. They don't hit a lot of home runs. They only got one the whole season, but they're a team that gets on base, small ball, as we like to say, Richard. And I think this team with Harford and Cates and Nodelman, I think they'll get back on track. And by the end of the season, they're going to have close to 20 wins, and they'll be number one in their region. I think everything's okay. Believe and trust the process with Coach Chad Mathis. A lot of these teams, Richard, they do this and schedule tough games to prepare them for the end of the season. They're willing to take the losses to be great at the end.
And they are 4-0 right now. They are currently in first place. If they can at least split the season series with Thomasville or Crisp County, we're talking about maybe a number one seed and hosting 2 home playoff games when it comes to playoff time. This is the same Columbus team that went to the Elite Eight last year but had to go on the road. I think that when you think of success with Columbus baseball, Coach Chad Mathis is getting him back to the level of the likes of Bobby Howard when he led them to 12 championships, including that three-peat from 2010 to 2012.
It's been a long time. It's been 12 years.
It has.
And I know they're itching for another one, Richard. They're ready to get back to the prominence as being one of the best baseball teams, not historically, not only in the state, but in the nation too. For that period of time in which Bobby was there, both tenures, you're seeing a Columbus team that was just the pinnacle of our sport. Number 6, Smith Station, 11-7, went to the Final Four last year. They haven't started area play. Some of their losses include LaGrange, Enterprise, Loganville, Athens. They beat Columbus. They beat Russell County. They beat Harris County. Also lost to Harris County by 1 in a thriller. Rick Beach was there for that one. They got Prattville coming up, and then, of course, they end the season with Opelika and Central 4 games. They just play in such a tough area, Richard. They could win over 20 games and not even make the playoffs, kind of like the girls' team did during basketball season. And this is a team that made it to the Final Four last year and returned a good portion of that team. What do you think about that, Richard? What do you think about Smith Station, number 6? Do you think they have what it takes in that region with Auburn, Opelika, Central? Do you think they have what it takes to make the playoffs?
Oh, I do. They do have a tough games against Auburn next week. They got a home and home against Auburn, and then they'll play Opelika on the 10th and the 11th of April, and then they will close out the season against Central. That could be the determining factor. They don't want to get into a situation where they have to beat Central to get into the playoffs. They got to sit back and wait and see what Auburn and Opelika do against each other. But, I mean, Opelika is having a fantastic year. They are 16-4. That's who Central plays next in region play. This is going to be fun because we've got 4 teams that not only could make the playoffs, they could make a deep run in the state playoffs when they get there. Unfortunately, only 2 teams are going to make it out of this area.
Number 5, the Pacelli Vikings, 11-4, beat Westfield. Right now, ranked top 4 in the GIAA 4A state rankings. The only team ahead of him is Brookstone. And I'm telling you, don't sleep on those Vikings. Coach Adam Thomas and Carson Bowers got Pacelli playing its best baseball it's seen in quite some time. They got a big one against Calvary on Saturday, and then they play against Shaw on Monday. They win both of those games 13-4. They're going to be moving up big time in our rankings. And, we made mention of Walker Hilton and what he's done as a pitcher, as one of the leaders as a hitter with Omar Kimbrough, a 5-tool player. Pacelli has the pieces. It's the pitching depth that could be a problem, but Pacelli right now 11-4, coming in the top 5.
Yeah, and the series to close out the regular season against Strong Rock Christian could determine their seeding. Right now, Brookstone is leading the way with a 7-1 record. Strong Rock Christian's got a 4-1 record, and Pacelli's got a 4-2 record. So, and they also got Heritage. So they got some tough region opponents to close out the season. But I think that Pacelli, trying to improve from getting to the playoffs in the second round last year, losing the first Presbyterian Day. But this Pacelli Vikings team, they're ready to play, and they're going to compete. And I'm very interested to see what they do in the GIAA playoffs.
They've had a great season. The problem is that a team in their region and in their same classification is having an even better one. We'll talk about them in a moment. Number 4, Glenwood, defending state champions last year. Remember, they had that historic one. They were ranked nationally, top 15. They had a – think about that, Glenwood and this year's Central team facing off. Woo! Last year's Glenwood, this year's Central, I paid money to see that. Glenwood coming in at number 4. They've lost some games and had some bruises along the way. Did take 2 or 3 from Lee Scott, which was big. They still got to play Calvary, which will be there for that, April the 11th. Glenwood, I think, is going to finish out the season strong, and then they'll be right there in the thick of things. Is, I think, the favorite to win another 3A AISH state championship, the final sport. It would be the curtain call for a team that's won 23 AISA state championships. Go ahead and make it 24 and say, see ya. Coach Fanny's trying to get his 10th. That's right. A ring for every finger on his hand. But this seems a little bit different. McCrane's been excellent. Sykes has had his bumps and bruises. He's a great player. But having to replace Brandon McCrane, Milam, Page, you lost a lot of productivity. So you're going to take some bumps as a young team, but I think Glenwood's starting to play good baseball now. They're 9-6, coming in at number 4.
The last time they played, they defeated Abbeville Christian on Thursday, March the 21st, 13-2.
Well, they had spring break this week.
They're on spring break, so they have not played a game this whole week. Their next series is going to be a home-and-home against Deerfield Windsor.
Out of the GIAA. Number 3 is the Brookstone Cougars. We've done the game against Columbus and Pacelli, and this team can hit. It's got 1 through 9, can put the ball, battle the ball, can score runs. Coach Greg Mathis has probably got one of the best Brookstone teams we've ever seen. Remember, Brookstone has won a state championship before in baseball back in the 2000s. But the Brookstone Cougars looking like a team that's going to bring home another ring for a Columbus school in the GIAA here. It's been all Pacelli as of recent, but the Lady Cougars in basketball made it last year, and I think the Brookstone Cougars can make it this year. It's their pitching staff, 1 through 4. They got guys that they can throw at you, and they got good depth that allows them to take on anyone in a 3-game series. Brookstone coming in at number 3. Richard, they've been playing excellent ball. They got spring break, I think, coming up as well as the Brookstone Cougars, 16-3, man. I think we talked about Jordan being the surprise team, which it is. They've had an excellent season, but it hadn't compared. And by the way, Brookstone is 17-3.
Yeah, they swept Westfield School.
They just beat Westfield today, so I know Richard didn't. It was unable.
Well, they actually beat him in the first game, so that record reflect the first game. They played Westfield School in a doubleheader, and they just won at the doubleheader.
Their only loss is to Pacelli, 6-1, and they lost to Glenwood and then Bessemer. But in their last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They won 11 of their last 12 games, Richard, and a lot of those weren't even close. And they got Heritage coming up next week. The week after, because next week, spring break. So you got a 3-game series against Heritage, Strong Rock Christian, and they're going to finish up the season against Calvary Christian. Brookstone, maybe bringing home a state championship. Speaking of Calvary, 12-1. They're ranked, and let me see what Max Preps, number 9 in the state. They're ranked top, nationally. Richard, they are ranked nationally. Actually, they don't even have the national rankings on here for them. I know they were like top 30, top 40, around there. Ranked number 9 in the entire state. Their only loss is to Pacelli. They want that revenge this Saturday. They took 2 in a row against an inferior opponent, but they needed to play baseball. They haven't played in 9 days, Richard, or 10 days because of rainouts, and had another one on Tuesday. They beat Sherwood Christian Academy like a drum, 18-16-0. So they got Pacelli, they got LaGrange, they got IMG Academy next week on their spring break. They got Glenwood, they got Troup County, Lakeside, Northside, and ending with Brookstone. So they go through that gauntlet, Richard, with only 1 or 2 losses. We're talking about one of the best teams we've seen in the Columbus area in some time, but they haven't matched up to what Glenwood did last year and Central's doing this year. But Calvary, number 2 team in our rankings, and just having a sensational season. They could end up being a top 5 team in the state by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I expect a collision course in the GAPS championship between the Kings Academy, which, by the way, 15-2. The Kings Academy actually lost to St. Francis today, 7-6. But we saw that they were in this championship last year, and St. Francis is a team that's actually in the GHSA, so the Kings Academy playing a very good team. But I think that the schedule that Coach Steve Smith makes during the season gets them prepared for the GAPS, which they've been undefeated so far, 4-0. And I think that Calvary, you got to put them there as the favorite to close out the GAPS and to win their 6th straight championship, making that transition to the GIAA.
They take on LaGrange, who plays Trinity Christian. I expect LaGrange to be 16-6 and Calvary to be 12-1. And the number 1 team in our rankings, we saw them yesterday, is Central. From top to bottom, they don't have any weaknesses. They have an elite defense. I was talking to one of the parents. They've been all across the state of Florida last week during spring break playing some big-time games. They haven't lost a game since early in the season. I think they're only got a 15-game winning streak right now, Richard. And many people say this may be the best infield in the nation. They had a couple turnovers, but wasn't for the infield. A lot of them were throwing errors and stuff from either the pitcher or I think maybe the catcher. But Central, AJ Keogh's team, they're not. I don't think there's any way they're going to go all season with only 1 loss. They may, but that's almost an unbelievable feat for a baseball team. I think they'll end up with maybe 2 or 3. And like I said yesterday in our interview with AJ Keogh, they're having such a great season. And then in the same classification, not even a different classification, same classification in the same state is Bob Jones, who's also ranked top 5 nationally. I mean, that's pretty unique. And they're on a collision course right now. But Central, they are the best team in the South. They are the best team in the East. The 2 teams ahead of them are in California. Central, AJ Keogh, the juggernaut, the number 1 team in our ratings.
And rightfully so. They have played just an incredible, tough schedule. It's been a brutal schedule. We're talking Buford, a 7A school out of Georgia. They've played Saraland. They've played teams that have just been known for, and they beat Bob Jones earlier in the season, 2-1. They played Hoover. They've played Northside. They played LaGrange. How about Mill Creek? That's their only loss. Mill Creek, a 7A school out of Georgia. And then I know that they've played all these tough opponents, but you got region play coming up, starting with Opelika next week. You just got to focus on region play. Opelika's having a fantastic season, 16-4. We know that Auburn is good. Smith Station making it to the semifinals last year. I mean, there's some good teams in their region, and They just got to continue doing what they do best. And they're a very resilient bunch because they've gotten down a couple of times. We've seen them on Georgia Alabama Sports
Both
Live.
times.
Down 4 runs to Columbus, and they come back and win it. Down 3 runs to LaGrange, and they come back and win it.
And we had a lot of fun yesterday. Thank you again to Matt Bell and all the Central people over there for their hospitality, and look forward to being back. All right, Richard, throw that graphic off. We're going to take a break. We're going to play some commercials, keep the lights on in this place. It's Georgia Alabama Sports Live show. We'll be right back after this.
Glenn Smith GMC and Opelika invite you to discover extraordinary deals like this powerful all-new GMC Sierra 1500 Pro, now up to $12,500 off. Purchase the roomy GMC Terrain SLT, discounted up to $8,750 off. And the GMC Acadia with 3-row seating, discounted up to $6,000 off. Enjoy no payments till summertime at Glenn Smith GMC. Over 300 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. Get ready to smile. Here are 3 great Chevrolet offers from Glenn Smith and Opelika. Check out the powerful full-size and fully loaded Chevrolet Silverado High Country, discounted up to $13,000 off. Or the roomy midsize 3-row SUV, the Chevy Traverse, discounted up to $8,000 off. And the perfect size Chevy Equinox, up to $7,500 off. No payments until summertime. Over 300 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. Get ready to smile.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. It's Georgia Alabama Sports Live show. We love being able to go to the different high school, colleges, middle schools to live broadcast sporting events around the area. Georgia Alabama Sports Live appreciates all the fan support, but without a presenting sponsor like Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC and Opelika, none of this would be possible. So we want to say thank you so much. Go to glennsmith.com. That is right, glennsmith.com. See all the inventory and see why people always say, you're ready to smile. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC for being our presenting sponsor.
Glenn Smith GMC and Opelika invite you to discover extraordinary deals like this powerful all-new GMC Sierra 1500 Pro, now up to $12,500 off. Purchase the roomy GMC Terrain SLT, discounted up to $8,750 off. And the GMC Acadia with 3-row seating, discounted up to $6,000 off. Enjoy no payments till summertime at Glenn Smith GMC. Over 300 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. Get ready to smile. Here are 3 great Chevrolet offers from Glenn Smith and Opelika. Check out the powerful full-size and fully loaded Chevrolet Silverado High Country, discounted up to $13,000 off. Or the roomy midsize 3-row SUV, the Chevy Traverse, discounted up to $8,000 off. And the perfect size Chevy Equinox, up to $7,500 off. No payments until summertime. Over 300 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. Get ready to smile.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Sorry about that. And it's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC, Thrift Barringer, Richard Holdridge. And thanks so much for tuning in. We just did our high school baseball ratings. Now we're going to move on to March Madness. So I was on my soapbox, and I talked about this, by the way, on the Sports Visions radio show multiple times. I'm just devastated about Auburn losing. But still got a Sweet 16, so let's throw up there, Richard, if you can, the graphic of the bracket, and we got some games tonight. UConn is taking on San Diego State right now. I think UConn's going to obliterate them. And I think it's between UConn and Illinois. I think Illinois with Terrence Shannon is an excellent team, and I honestly think they may come out of this bracket, and the winner of this bracket may win the whole daggum thing. UConn should have no problem with San Diego State, and I think they're also Iowa State is going to lose to Illinois. And then you look on the other side of the bracket, I got Duke coming out of that bracket now. I think Houston struggling against A&M. I don't think they're playing their best basketball. Duke beating James Madison, take care of business, back-to-back games. Filipowski, you got the guy that hit 8-9 threes. I can't think of his name for Duke. Head. He was just sensational. I think Duke's going to come out of this bracket, and I think UConn's going to come out of the top. What do you think, Richard?
I agree, Thrift. I do. Actually, I agree with UConn beating San Diego State. This is a rematch of the championship game of last year. I'm just not sure that Duke can beat Houston, but you're right. I think that Houston struggled against Texas A&M, but I actually think that Coach Sampson is going to get them ready. I think that was a wake-up call, and they'll find a way to beat Duke, but I see them losing in the Elite Eight. I think that this Houston team is flawed. I don't think that Duke is a team that can make a run to the Final Four. Yeah, they do have Kyle Filipowski, and he is a really good player. But I think that if you look at Houston and Duke, Houston should be the favorite, and they should advance. But I think this game's going to be very close.
Duke's going to win. I don't think Houston's playing his best basketball, and I think they do have. Richard, I think you're so wrong on that, and I think Duke's going to shove it to you with that comment, just like Alabama did. So you just gave Duke motivation, so please continue.
I gave them bulletin board material. That's what I do here on the Georgia Alabama.
By the way,
Sports Live
in that
show.
Duke bracket, NC State Marquette are facing off, but I don't think Tyler Kolek and Marquette, they'll beat NC State, making the Elite Eight. First time Shaka Smart's made an Elite Eight since he was with VCU. Didn't have, I don't think he got to the second weekend while he was at Texas. If you want to go down, Richard, the bottom half of the bracket, so I got UConn and Duke. You have Illinois and Houston moving on, but keep going, Richard. North Carolina, Alabama. I think Alabama upsets North Carolina. I think we're going to get an Alabama-Arizona Elite Eight. I think Arizona beats Clemson, and I think Arizona, as I initially predicted, is going to come out of this region, and Coach Tommy Lloyd as his, I think, most experienced team. I'm not saying his best team or most talented, but his most experienced team, and I think Caleb Love is going to be the factor. And I want the North Carolina-Arizona rematch, but I think Bama's going to win. And I think it's going to be Arizona-UConn in the Final Four facing off against each other. What about you, Richard?
Well, I've got North Carolina winning the whole thing, but Alabama's going to be a tough matchup. Mark Sears is just instant offense. Alabama just does not play defense. But, North Carolina – with Armando Bacot, R.J. Davis, they've got some great players. I think,
and maybe they got a lot of seniors too and experience, Richard.
Oh yeah,
they're an older team.
Alabama has not been to the Elite Eight since 2002. I remember I was in college and they upset the number 1 seed Stanford, and so that would be huge for Alabama basketball if they can get to the Elite Eight. I thought that they would get to the Final Four last year. They were an overall number 1 seed. But what Coach Nate Oates.
They've never done it and made it to the Elite Eight, but what he's done is an incredible job. So you got North Carolina, Arizona, and I'm assuming North Carolina making it to the Final Four.
Correct, but as I scroll down here, Clemson is actually leading Arizona right now by 10. It's 16-6. Clemson is my surprise team. I did not think Clemson would get to the Sweet 16. I had New Mexico beating them.
Yeah, we're looking to fire Coach Brownell. And now he's going to get a raise and extension because he made it to the Sweet 16. On the other side, in that bottom half of the bracket, I think it's going to be Purdue, Tennessee. Purdue's going to make it to the Elite Eight, second time under Coach Matt Painter, but he is not punching a ticket to the Final Four. Rick Barnes is going back, first time since 2003. Dalton Connett, just like he had back then with TJ Ford, gets him to the Final Four to take on a really good team and the Duke Blue Devils. So Duke, Tennessee, and I got Arizona, UConn, and I got UConn, Tennessee, Natty, and I'm picking SEC, baby. It just means more. I'm going Tennessee to make amends for the horrific performances from Kentucky, Auburn, Mississippi State, and everyone else that lost in the first round, South Carolina. Tennessee beats UConn, upsets him, and Rick Barnes finally gets a national championship to cement his Hall of Fame career.
I agree. Purdue, Zach Edey, I saw them in the Elite Eight. They look fantastic. This is not the same Gonzaga team. But I actually think if you go down to the bracket, Creighton, Tennessee, that's going to be a fantastic game.
Yeah, it is, Richard. I don't know. Are you texting something, Richard? I, everybody heard you chomping away. I mean, Richard was hacking on something. We're going to take a break. This is our March Madness. So Final Four, Richard has Purdue, and he's got Houston, and he's got North Carolina, and he's got Arizona. He's got North Carolina, he's got UConn. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back here on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show right after this.
Glenn Smith, GMC, and Opelika invite you to discover extraordinary deals like this powerful all-new GMC Sierra 1500 Pro, now up to $12,500 off. Purchase the roomy GMC Terrain SLT, discounted up to $8,750 off. And the GMC Acadia with 3-row seating, discounted up to $6,000 off. Enjoy no payments till summertime at Glenn Smith GMC. Over 300 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. Get ready to smile.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thrift, Barringer, Richard Holdridge, Georgia, Alabama Sports Live show. And we just did our March Madness who are we predicting the Final Four? Richard, who's in your national championship? You got North Carolina and who?
I got North Carolina and Houston.
Richard, can you hear us?
Yes, I got North Carolina and Houston.
North Carolina and Houston. That is happening for Richard. That's what he thinks is going to be in the Final Four. All right, let's get out of that and let's move on to our NBA. This will be our final topic for the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show as we do our NBA prediction as the season is coming to an end. And me and Richard, we asked ourselves some questions. First, how many teams do we think realistically can win it all, Richard? And as I look at it, and I told you this is how we're going to go about it. We got the double fist pump, which means we think that they have an opportunity to make it to the NBA Finals. We got the fist pump that thinks, you know what, if they get hot and play well, maybe, but I'm not seeing it. Double fist pump means, yes, I put them in as a contender. And then the Tiger Woods uppercut, Richard, we're going to say that is a for sure slam dunk, the favorite to win it all. So my Tiger Woods uppercut back in the 2005 Masters when you heard Vern Lundquist say, yes, sir, when he did that. Or was it, maybe it wasn't that when he said yes, sir. Maybe that was the Masters. No, that was, yes, sir, he said that for Jack Nicklaus. Oh, my, is what he said when Tiger Woods made that incredible shot back in the 2005 Masters. I want to say there's two teams, one in each conference, that I think are legitimate favorites, and that's it. The Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets. And I think they're in a class of their own. And I know Boston has a better record, but listening to people that cover the sport even more thoroughly than I do, I think Denver right now, the team that won it all last year, when they are at their best, and they're either at their best or when they are, neither team is hitting a shot and it's your best versus the other team's best because no one else can hit anything, and you just got to go to your go-to guy. Who are you relying on? I'm picking Nikola Jokic every single time. But the Tiger Woods uppercut for me would be Denver and Boston. Do you have any other teams, or do you agree with just those two?
I agree with just those two, Thrift. I mean, we are on the same page when it comes to the NBA. Let's talk about this Boston Celtics team that I think offensively they're a lot better than those teams in the past. I mean, they got three players that score over 20 points a game. The addition of Kristaps Porzingis averaging 20.3 points a game. Jason Tatum, I know he gets a lot of criticism, especially late in games in the playoffs. I mean, sometimes he doesn't make the most ideal decisions, but him and Jaylen Brown, they're superstars. You add Kristaps Porzingis, you add a two-way defender in Drew Holiday. How about Derek White coming off the bench? I know a lot of Boston Celtics fans, They miss having Marcus Smart. They miss having Robert Williams and Grant Williams.
Right.
But this is a different team. I think that the Boston Celtics, if they don't win a championship, it's a disappointing year. But you can never count out the defending champs. The Denver Nuggets,
Never.
they still have the entire team that won the NBA championship last year. And if Denver gets home court in the Western Conference, it's over. Who's going to beat the Denver Nuggets in that high altitude?
Well, I think they are, and right now they're playing the best basketball out of anyone, and I think they just turned it on, and I think Coach Malone's like, hey, let's get that number 1 seed. It's a tough Western Conference. All right, so from teams that we think are the favorite to teams that actually can contend, that is the double fist pump. I only have a few teams, Richard, when looking at it. In the Eastern Conference, I know many people are going to laugh at me when I say this. It's not the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think they can win it all this year. I'm just not a big believer in them. I don't think they play great defense. They have gotten better since that 0-7 start under Doc Rivers. I know they're the number 2 seed right now, and they're 2 games above New York, but I'm not a believer in them because I think when all else fails, do they have what it takes to upset Boston? No. I think there's 2 teams that could. I think New York because how hard they play, and I think the Miami Heat. I think the Heat are just sleepwalking. You saw them as an 8 seed last year. Right now, they're a 7 seed, but they easily could move up here in the next couple of weeks and be a 6 or 4 or 5. I got the Miami Heat. Those are Heat and Knicks. I know people are going to be like, are you kidding me? Not the Bucks. So Heat and Knicks from the Heat. And I'm not even willing to put the Knicks. You know what? I'm going to put the Knicks out. I'm going to say the Heat. The Knicks are going to be a team that I think could contend if they get hot. They hadn't even made a conference finals in the last 25 seasons. So I can't. I'm sorry. It is just the Heat, and they're not even a top 5 seed. So I'm not very high on, it's not I don't feel very confident about it, but I have them as a double fist bump. On the Western side, though, the Clippers, I think, could easily do it. Not ready to believe in the Timberwolves because I don't know about their success in the postseason. Historically, they've only had 1 season which they won multiple playoff rounds. That was back in 2004 when KG was playing with them and won the MVP. I think the Lakers could if they're healthy. I'll put the Lakers in there and the Clippers. And that's it, Richard. And it's because of their experience. The Thunder are young right now. I'm not ready to say, yes, a team, they can win a championship. I'm not ready to say they're winning a championship this year. Half of those guys haven't even played the playoffs before. Clippers and Lakers would be my 2 teams that I think would put in there. Phoenix, not ready to put them in there yet. They're on that one-hand fist pump. What about you? Who's your double?
My double fist pump in the East, I agree with you, Thrift, the Miami Heat. They're just going to turn it on in the playoffs. Activate playoff Butler. Bam Adebayo. Tyler Hero. Remember, he was injured last year. The acquisition of Terry Rozier, he's averaging 15 points a game. How about you got to give it up to Pat Riley, finding these gems, these diamonds in the rough, undrafted free agents. He did it again with UCLA, Jaime Jaquez Jr. Having an outstanding rookie season, averaging 12.3 points a game. And, I know Kyle Lowry's getting old. I mean, you look at they did lose some players like Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, but this Miami Heat team, I believe, and I've said this before, Eric Spoelstra is a very, very underrated head coach. I mean, when it comes to one of the best NBA head coaches, it's Eric Spoelstra.
And instead of repeating myself, I'm going to go ahead and say it too. My 2 sleeper teams for each conference is the Clippers and the Heat. I think both those teams, when all things are running right, especially with Rozier adding to the Heat, and then James Harden, the way they played, they both have had stretches this year in which they played elite-level basketball. Those are my sleeper teams. And I would love a Heat Clippers finals. That'd be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah,
those are my sleeper teams for each conference. Richard, you want to give your sleeper teams real quick before we just do the teams that we think could maybe, if everything goes right, could make a run?
Well, my sleeper team in the West, I'm going to say it's the Lakers. And the reason why is because it is LeBron. It is AD. You don't know what version of Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, or D'Angelo Russell you're going to get. But
they may not even make the playoffs, though, Richard. That's
I agree.
About it.
Look at what the Lakers did. They went into Milwaukee. They win that game in double overtime. They beat Memphis right now. Without LeBron, they've won 5 straight. Right now, they are only a game and a half behind Sacramento. I think that if they have to play the Warriors in the play-in, I mean, that's a crapshoot because, Steph Curry could get hot. But if they could sneak in and get the play-in 7-8 game and get a number 7 seed and they end up playing Minnesota in the first round and they avoid Denver, the Lakers are a team to watch out for. And even though they don't have a legitimate 3, I mean, D'Angelo Russell will go off and have 44 points one night, and then he'll be quiet. Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura. I mean, if they just figure it out, they got LeBron and AD. The Lakers are going to be
figure it out. That Richard, they're not going to make it. I'm sorry, man. I think even they figure it out. I want to put them in there because they got the talent, but the gauntlet they're going to have to go through. I mean, it's tough. I don't know, man. Even with it all, they're playing their best. You put their best against the Minnesota's best or Denver's best. Are you taking the Lakers 100%? I don't know if I am. Even with LeBron playing as good as he is, Anthony Edwards is just as good. Denver's got the best player in the country in Nikola NBA and Jokic. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is unguardable, and those young guys can run. So it'd be hard for me to be able to put them in there. I'll tell you this, though. Golden State, what's happened to them is a travesty. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. And for God's sake, I don't want – I'm sorry, Richard. I don't want to see your Kings. Please, I don't care how many games in a row Domantas Sabonis has had a double-double. No one cares about the Kings. Kick them out. And that means we're picking between the Suns, the Lakers, and Golden State are the 3 teams right now, if it go up right now standings, that we're going to get for 2 spots. I think Golden State gets left out. I think it's Lakers and Phoenix. Then we did the double fist pump, the one fist pump. I'd put the Lakers in there. I'd put the Knicks in there. I put the Pacers in there. We saw what happened during that tournament, the in-season tournament. Remember, they made all the way to the championship. They could upset Milwaukee. If they're the 7 seed, play Milwaukee the 2 seed, they swept Milwaukee this year. They could upset Milwaukee and make a run all the way to the conference finals. I think Dallas is another team that people sleep on because Jokic, Luka Doncic can take over any game. And the way Kyrie's played all season long, this is his best year as a pro that he's had in 4 or 5 seasons, and he hasn't been hurt. No bad news or bad headlines. Dallas. Another team, and then no one even talks about the fact that New Orleans Pelicans has had Zion Williamson for almost 70 games.
Wow.
He hadn't played 70 games in his entire career. He's about to play 70 this season. I don't understand how someone as big and athletic as he is can't get double-digit rebounds. It's only 5.
Well, he slimmed down.
Yeah, he has slimmed down, and he's played great. Ingram's played great. You got McCollum. You got Herb Jones that can defend anyone. Trey Murphy can knock down shots from anywhere. Jonas Valanciunas gives you size to be able to match up with Jokic. The Pelicans are another team that could make it, but I only get to pick one sleeper team. It's Clippers, and it's the Miami Heat. MVP favorite, if you're asking me who am I going to give it to, it's hard not to give it to someone from Boston. They're going to have the number 1 seed, Richard, but I think it's probably going to be someone like Jokic or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Right now, those are the favorites, but Gilgeous-Alexander moving down to 3. If Denver's the number 1 seed, why the heck would you give it back to Jokic, right? Am I wrong on saying that? And I think Boston, too, a lot of the voting is going to be predicated on the fact that they view that as a complete team instead of being carried by one dominant player with Denver. Denver's a complete team, but obviously the show runs through Jokic. Boston, you can say it runs through White and Holiday sometimes. Tatum and Brown, that's unique. It makes them so great. But I don't know if I'm ready to give Tatum the MVP. I'm going to say Jokic is my MVP right now. What's yours? And I don't care about people getting tired of it either.
Well, I honestly think this is a regular season award. And the season that OKC has had, if you take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander off the Oklahoma City roster, what do you have? He's having a great season.
You have a lot of young talent.
They
you got
do.
a lot of young talent now.
They do, but Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is the straw that stirs the drink. He's averaging over 30 points a game.
And so is Jokic. So is Jokic. You take Jokic out, Denver is not even sniffing close to the playoffs. I
think the voters, they're probably going to pull like what they did in 2011 with Derrick Rose. They want to give it to somebody different.
So you're saying Jokic fatigue right now is what's going to happen?
I think people are getting Jokic fatigue. But I do believe if Joel Embiid was healthy, he would be in consideration for the MVP. If the Sixers were good.
Jalen Brunson should be a first-team All-NBA. He's not. But what he's done with the Knicks, especially if they finish the number 2 seed, you got to put them in there. My conference finals, Knicks, Boston. It's what I want. I want Madison Square Garden conference finals. I've been craving it since Melo almost took them back in 2013 and the Pacers upset him because Roy Hibbert just dominated Tyson Chandler and just gave him the business. Paul George had his coming out party. The Pacers beat him, and then they took the Heat, that great Heat team that, remember, Ray Allen hit the shot against the Spurs that season. They took the Heat to 7 in that series. David West, great team. The Knicks and Boston, and then Western Conference, Clippers and Nuggets. And then I got a finals, Clippers and Celtics. As good as I like the Nuggets, and I think they are the favorite, I'm going with what I want to watch. And I'm sorry, I love Denver, and as a basketball purist, you want to watch high-level, high IQ basketball, I get it. But it'd be cool to have a Clippers-Boston, the stars aligned, Brown and Tatum, Kawhi and George, James Harden, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Russell Westbrook. I mean, storyline after storyline. Ty Lue versus Joe Mazzulla would be fun. That's what I got. What do you got, Richard? And I got the Clippers winning a championship. Again, Denver's going to win it all, okay? If you want me to be serious and have to really pick with my money, I'm going Denver. But I'm not picking with my money. And I'm picking with what I want to see. And I want to see Clippers win it all. Because you're talking about a terrible team. I put them in there with the Lions as one of those putrid organizations that never even sniffed success. Make it to the finals and winning it. Steve Ballmer's going to be dancing for joy and beating his chest for about 3 hours straight. I can only imagine how crazy he's going to be. Richard, finals. Who do you got?
Well, let's start with the conference finals in the East. I got Boston and Miami. I got Boston winning that in 7. And then over in the Western Conference Finals, I've got Denver taking on the Phoenix Suns. And Denver is going to end up beating them. I think the Phoenix Suns will win a couple playoff series because Kevin Durant, but they're not going to be able to match up against Denver. I got Denver and Boston in the finals, with the Boston Celtics winning their 18th championship in franchise history.
How about that? Nice job, Richard. You're going to make Bill Simmons and all the Celtics fanatics happy.
Yeah, and a big shout out to all my Boston fans up there too. I know they're big Patriots, Red Sox,
they don't
Celtics, Bruins.
They don't deserve winning. They got
I know, but they love their Boston sports up there.
They do, but they don't deserve any more winning. And the way they act, no, can't do it. Can't do it. We want to say thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like us on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube. So, again, tomorrow, Harris County, Northgate. And then on Saturday, doubleheader, Calvary-Pacelli at 10, Calvary-LaGrange at 3:30. Then me and Richard will have our show next week. We got Pacelli Shaw on Monday, and we'll have one other game. Me and Richard will also be out of town, but we will still do a show. And then we're going to come back next Saturday. We got CVCC, men's and women's. We're doing softball and baseball, 20 games, 10 for baseball, 10 for softball, 10 home games we're going to be doing, and it's starting off. They've already had great start to their season. We got that Saturday, doubleheader, softball and baseball. Richard, any final thoughts?
A great show, like always. And before we close, though, I want to give a special shout-out to my alma mater, Fried-Harbin University, for winning the NAIA championship. How about
that? I saw you did that on the Sports Beat show. You had all Friedman-Harbin alumni show, which I know
That
y'all
was
had a lot of fun. And I know that's pretty cool to see. I'd love for Columbus State, if they ever got to win a national title, I would definitely be the same way. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We'll see y'all tomorrow, Harris County Northgate, and then, like I said, Calvary, Pacelli, Calvary LaGrange, and then the show next week. Stay tuned for more. Make sure to like us on YouTube and Facebook. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you for watching the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. You're ready to smile.